Warning: the following broadcast features thoughts, ideas, and opinions you might find offensive. If you're easily angered, insulted, hurt, provoked, outraged, or annoyed, the following may offend you. The views expressed in this show are solely those of the individuals providing them and do not reflect the opinions of YouTube or Google. So please, don't flag this video. Viewer discretion is advised.
Say a big apology that I scheduled this event an hour before it came up. Daylight savings. I have to get used to it in my country, and now I have to get used to it in your country. Doesn't make any sense. So my apologies. I realized last night that I had messed that up and changed it on everything else but YouTube, which was my mistake. I'm really sorry, guys. So if you've been waiting here for an extra hour, I really appreciate it. At least it wasn't an hour later, so I guess that's probably a good thing, right?
Hi guys.
Yeah, okay, so obviously, hi guys, if you haven't been here before, this is Does This Offend You? We talk about 2 movies, and really, we do some reaching.
Yeah.
We love to do some reaching. We talk about, oh, jeez, and the call dropped. Fuck, hang on 1 second, guys. Oh, live. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. Okay, we talk about 2. This is going off to a great start. At least we have audio, guys. We talk about 2 movies. We do some reaching. We reach into different themes and ideas in movies that could potentially be held like offensive. We just talk about them and kind of make parallels between 2 films. I do want to say for this film, trigger warning, this video in particular does have, besides all like the gruesome stuff, I would say like we talk about sexual assault in this, we will talk about it in this video, or this live stream, and was there any other trigger? I mean, it's cannibalism, so you clicked on that.
Maybe a little bit.
But yeah, so what was that?
Self-harm.
Self-harm,
Also,
that's the one.
Yeah.
Self-harm, sexual assault. Definitely, just because you may not know with these 2 movies. Usually we don't do trigger warnings because obviously usually what we're talking about really relates to what the films are, but these films have different themes in them as well as, the cannibalism, which is really funny because Vicky and I have like this thing where we like to talk about cannibalism last, even though it's like the first thing on the table. If you did not know, this is my host, Vicky, Nova Maven. I'm sure you guys all know and love her. My YouTube BFF, I like to call her, behind her back, to her face sometimes if I'm feeling brave. If you want to check out her channel, I've left it down below in the description box. Please check it out. She just put up a Lighthouse review reaction, a moment, which was really fun. And obviously, she just did her 1,000 video. I don't know what to call that. Her 1,000th video on her channel.
That's what I called it, literally.
Yeah, it was a really good. It was a long journey through a lot of screams. It's really interesting seeing someone's phobia play out like that. But anyway, check it out. I haven't seen anything like that before. But yes, hi everyone in the chat. Sorry, I'm gonna address.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start today, Vicky?
Gosh. I don't know. Oh, Andrea Supasati's here. Hi, Andrea.
Sorry, guys.
Daniel Oleg. Everyone who's been here for a little bit. I don't know. Should we let the chat decide like we normally do?
Sure. I'm down.
Which one should we start with? Eat, Raw? They both came out kind of around the same time, so it's not...
2 years apart.
One for Eat, Raw. One for Raw.
Oh, am I getting...
Figure most people eat Raw. Okay, we're tied.
I've only got 2, yeah. Oh, hey, Lizzie. Hey, Seth. Hey Ben. Hey Dean. Hey Daniel. Jesus. Hey Sarah. Hey Katie. I was just yelling at Dean on the phone, so you didn't witness that, did you, Vicky? A little bit.
A tiny bit.
Actually,
Wasn't
kind of
yelling.
fits in with the theme. What happened? So that's
It
quite
does
funny.
actually.
Yeah.
That's okay. No, that's a little bit weird.
What?
Did he know what our topic was before?
Oh no, he didn't. He didn't. He has no idea.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows. I don't eat. Well, I eat fish. I eat seafood, but I don't eat meat. And my boyfriend bought me a bagel and it had meat in it. That's all that happened. Yeah, everyone's like, what? It's like I
realized how mean that was. I was like, did he know beforehand? Because like, why would he buy you a bagel with meat just for that?
Yeah.
That's a really mean thing to do.
That is funny. I mean, it would have been better if it was like live streaming. But yeah, it was just like I put a video up today about my paranormal experience, and I was talking about him, and I was like my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, wait, he's not like dead or anything, or like so funny. Sorry, I got to clarify all this kind of stuff. Okay, how are we going, guys? Okay, we kind of like tied. People, I think there's more. No, should we flip a coin? Do you have a coin?
I have a book. I could.
That is one big.
Throw a book.
It is. Yeah, I won't get you to throw them up. I have a card, maybe. Should we do this, or what do you guys want to do?
Or I have a bookmark.
Yeah, we can rock paper scissors. Let's do that. That's fun.
Oh, sure.
Then which one do you want to be? Now I'm gonna decide.
I'll be eat. I'll make it easy. I'll be eat.
You'll be eat. Okay, I'll be raw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you do it like
Ready?
this? Like 1, 2, 3, done. Done.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah. Done.
Wait, go? Do you say go and then you do it, or do you do it on go?
On go.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. I have to. You're American. I have to like make sure. It's different.
Fair point. Okay.
Okay.
Ready? So much.
Okay, I've got to think about what I'm gonna do. I know exactly what you're gonna do. Okay, cool. Let's try this one. Your face, I love that.
Ready?
Wait.
Rock, paper.
Wait, how are you going?
I'm gonna go rock, paper, scissors.
You say rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah. Do you?
No.
What do you say? What do you say in Australia?
I don't say anything. You go done, 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 done. You don't go done, but you just do it. This is taking way too long. Okay, are you ready?
Okay, I won't say it. Fine. Okay, ready?
You can say it.
Okay.
Wait, go. I can't think and say that at the same time.
Okay.
Wait, when are we going? When are we going?
I'm waiting for you to put your hand down.
Should we just turn around and both put our hands? I can't, because it's the camera.
Okay, how about just put your hand off camera. We'll say 1, 2, 3, and then put either rock, paper, or scissors up.
Okay, let's do that. It's too hard.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I knew you were gonna do scissors. Something in my.
Well, I did paper the first time.
Oh, did you?
I
knew you were gonna do scissors, but it worked out. You know, psychic. I don't know. It's actually really funny. No, that's a boring story. I'm not going to talk about rock, paper, scissors anymore than we already are. Which one won? Raw? Was that Raw?
Yeah, you won.
Okay.
Imagine if we forgot. You were
close to
Raw, you won.
Okay.
You both are dorks. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Katie. We are. Okay. Let me find my summary. Okay.
Make sure that all of this is good. Okay, you go.
We're going to talk about Raw first. Give you a quick summary, although I think this is the one everybody is most familiar with, but it's written and directed by Julia Ducournau, and it follows Justine, who comes from a family of vets and vegetarians and goes on to follow in her family's footsteps at vet school, Hazing of the first year student starts right away, and Justine is forced to eat raw meat for the first time in her life. Initially, this has adverse effects, but she soon develops a craving for meat, human flesh in particular.
Eek.
I don't think we said, but we're gonna spoil stuff just really quick. So
spoilers.
if you haven't seen either movie, we'll talk about the ending.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this one because it's like has a lot to do with it's a twist. Is what it's
Right, yeah, you kind of have to discuss the twist again. So.
Yes. Did you like this film? Have I heard you speak on this before?
Yeah, I don't actually remember. I can use the excuse now because I have so many videos. I don't remember if I did a video on Raw. I might have, but I did like it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I quite enjoyed it. I think this like subsequent viewings, I've liked it a little bit more each time. Like it's kind of a lot the first time, but
it is, and you have no idea where it's going because it's just kind of all over the place. But huge fan of this film actually. I really like this film. Something very different as well. A different kind of idea for. I mean, shall we get into the ending so we can get to the beginning? One of the big things about this film is obviously it is revealed in the end that it is. Would you say it's like genetic? That she has this cannibalism.
Yeah, they kind of like hint at it, but leave it super open ended. Like because you realize the sister has the same problem, so that's your first kind of inkling, like maybe it's a family thing, and then that's kind of like solidified at the very end when the dad essentially reveals that
and shows that
the mom has the same problem. Yeah, so they hint at it, but they still leave it a little bit open ended. That's what my first thought was, that it's like a genetic thing.
I think it's really interesting because we started off talking about how we wanted to do eventually, I don't know, we might still do it, like something about vegetarian or veganism in movies. And this is definitely, this is why this movie is so interesting, is because it's kind of seen as they're vegetarian and they go through we'll talk about the aspects, but they go through in different aspects about why they're vegetarian and what they believe about animals and things like that. But in the end, you find out they're only vegetarian because it's nothing to do with like ethical eating or health. It's well, I guess technically it is to do with health, but it's to do with like the fact that they have this genetic trait which makes them like cannibalists. If they eat and get a taste for flesh, they keep going. So staying vegetarian is the only way they can keep that at bay. And I think that it's just really interesting because I was reading that the director. She had this conversation with someone about everyone thinking that the film was about being vegetarian. And this is what she said. This is the quote. She said, her being vegetarian, meaning the main character, I guess like all of the characters, is just a storytelling tool. If you have a character become a cannibal, it's good to have her be the complete reverse at the start of the story. It's funny because if I ever wanted to make a film about vegetarians, I would have made a whole different I would have made a whole other movie. In this, we find out the reason. Oh, yeah, then it goes into me talking. So it's just interesting because you think that, I don't know, me coming away from the film, I always think about all of the ethics within the film because it's like about them. They go to vet school. They talk about animals quite a bit. They have like a dog in the movie, and I don't know. It's really is hinted at the ethics of it, but behind it all, it was never intended to be that way. I just thought that was like, super interesting coming off the back of it. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, and they, like you said, they do lead you to believe that, and I think that you're kind of in Justine's shoes in that sense because up until then, she obviously doesn't know anything about like her mom or her sister and that thing. And she's been raised veggie her entire life. So for her, she assumes just like us that it is like an ethical or a health thing, which is, hinted at when, well, not even hinted at, just like blatantly shown when she's like having that argument with her classmates about animal rights. And her argument is essentially that animal rights equal human rights. And when they're talking about like rape and stuff, and they're equating monkey rape to a woman being raped. But But I mean, it's sometimes like I thought that was interesting because it's sometimes I don't know if it's like really like a joke or something, but it's something that comes up a lot when you're talking to like a vegetarian or a vegan that, like, oh, we care about animals more than we care about humans. But I think it just puts you in Justine's shoes a little bit more because that's what she believes at the beginning of the movie also.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. But I think it's interesting that the director didn't intend it to be, but it's got so many different themes throughout it that really link it back. And I don't know if that's watching it, and probably like from both of our point of views, watching it from people who don't, eat all meats or have dietary requirements or whatever you want to call it, that maybe, you try and find similarities between a character and yourself. So maybe that's that. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought about that kind of theme stringing through. Did you want to talk about the actual conversation that they had when they had lunch with the monkey?
Oh, I mean, that was essentially it. Like they're talking about animal rights and it starts off weirdly about a conversation about AIDS is how they get into
so
talking
it gets
about
more controversial, really.
Yeah, that's how they start talking about the monkey and then talking about having sex with the monkey, which is kind of like the stereotype of, and that it's like a really outdated one too, though. That was like a really outdated stereotype that
how it's
that like AIDS was like a homosexual disease or something. Only gay men got it or whatever. And that's how they start talking about having sex with the monkey and eventually rape, and then it comes into if that equals raping a person. Is essentially the whole conversation.
Well, they talk about how would they even have sex with a monkey? And they're like, people have sex with animals all the time. And then somehow Justine says something about it being rape. And then the thing that gets me about the end of the conversation and why I wanted to like bring it up is it's really interesting what she says at the end because no one says anything back to her. The last line I believe she says is, "What I'm saying isn't that like crazy," because people are looking at her like she's crazy for saying it's the same thing. I thought that was really interesting and an interesting place to leave it. Again, talking about like ethical eating and animal rights, and then to find out that this movie isn't meant to be about being vegetarian. Like, how would you put that line in a movie and expect people not to grab that out of there? Expecting us not to reach. We're reaching. I just think it was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and of course it's going to come up too because they're in a vet school. So, like you said, animals are like all throughout the movie.
Yeah. I mean, how interesting would it be if they were in a morgue? Although they are in a morgue in one moment because but I mean, if they were, learning to be morticians or I don't know, even in a hospital.
But I thought it was supposed to be a vet school, so like I don't understand why there was a human body.
Yeah, I know. This is just occurring to me now too.
Yeah.
Like that's why I was like, wait a minute, why is there a human body? Does anyone know what we're talking about? We'll go to the scene. I guess like that kind of leads into like let's start with like the hazing because that's like an overwhelming, huge moment in the film. And as Vicky let in, there is like really intense hazing. I don't know, hazing is such like an American thing, I think. I know that they do it here, but I mean, we definitely wouldn't call it hazing, I don't think. Let me know in the comments. I think only Flops or Randy is around that may know. But I don't know, Randy, how you went in college. But yeah, I don't know, like they do certain aspects of that, but I feel like it's very much an American thing. And I saw that as well, that there was, when I was doing my research on just hazing in general, a lot of, especially with the rise of social media and people being able to film a lot on their phones now, which does happen in the film, American like colleges or schools or whatever have been taking it a little bit more seriously because obviously there's like legally repercussions for them with them putting students through these kind of things. It's also interesting because they say that there's can be a lot of emotional harassment, and I guess it is bullying technically, but everyone goes through it, so like man up kind of. It's very interesting. I think it's just a weird thing. Do you have any stories or anything, Vicky?
No, I don't have any stories. I mean, I went to like a smaller like private university, so there wasn't enough room for like actual like sorority and fraternity houses or anything.
Mhm.
So, and I was never in one. So to my knowledge, that didn't really happen. And there was like a lot of commuter students also, so I don't really know how they'd be able to really do a lot of that. It was a super small campus, but no, it's they are like you said, they are starting to crack down on it a little bit more because with social media, you can see things.
Mm.
I think like the most recent thing that's happened in the news is a boy. I think it was nearby at UF. He died from alcohol poisoning, and because nobody, it was like at a hazing kind of like party thing, and nobody checked on him, and
That's awful.
it gets really bad.
Yeah. So in Raw, this is kind of introduced at the very start, and this is how she actually this is kind of her downfall because as one of the things that they have to do is she has to eat a rabbit's heart. I believe it was a rabbit's heart or rabbit's liver. Rabbit's
Yeah.
liver.
Hold on, I said it, but now I can't remember. It was a rabbit something. Oh no, I actually didn't say it. Yeah, it's a rabbit something.
It's a rabbit something.
Liver, heart, kidneys. Something.
And she obviously is introduced to, going out and partying. They have to stay up all night. And it's just like emotional abuse, like what they're doing to those kids and throwing their mattresses out the window when they don't. Oh my, I just can't even imagine trying to sleep somewhere. I would be so pissed. I don't know how people go along with that kind of stuff. Like, it would just. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, it's stressful. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that's like, I have it like ingrained in my brain where it's like, it's exactly what you said. Like people like, that's what happens. Like it doesn't make it any better, but like
you have to go along with
it. Probably if it was like in real life, that's probably what happens if you don't go along with it, or like or worse, like you snitch or something like that, then that's gonna
I'm sure
follow you.
They must know in this school that that's happening though. They've got like rooms dedicated to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, the nurse even kind of mentions it when she asked Justine like if she's like a first year or whatever, and she's hinting that she knows what goes on, so they probably know. But it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like the messed up tradition of hazing in general, where it's like known as a tradition, so people kind of tend to just like look the other way.
And I felt like they were more subject to harm in that school though, because I guess what I know, I don't know much about like American college, but here we don't really have sororities and stuff like that and fraternities. But I mean, it's hazing to go into them. In this school, it's just hazing because you're a vet in first year in this school. Like, you don't really have the opportunity to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do my own thing and I'm just not going to get involved, which was totally what I would do. Like, I don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night. And it's so scary. I would be terrified of these people. Yes, I guess this leads on to the social media. It's really interesting in this film because I feel like they tackle social media bullying in such a different way. They have, them filming all of these things that happen to them, especially the kind of catalyst for like the ultimate fight between the sisters is one night Justine gets really, really, really fucked up, drunk, and she is led into this morgue room, whatever the fuck, and they like, and all of the kids at the party come and they film her like, jumping to go bite this dead guy's arm. And it's so interesting because when she's shown this, or like the next day when she's like, sober or, coming out of it, she gets really mad, but she goes and just gets mad at her sister. She's not like fretting about that video being online. Like, you see a lot of these things where people just cry and like go into their own place and like certain things happen. But in this film, it's like all of this with like people pulling out their phones and stuff is just happening in the background, but it doesn't really get touched on, or like nothing is said about it. It's just kind of like, well, that's what happens nowadays. If like someone acts up at a party, like they get filmed, and that's just that. And there was no like repercussions or like even speaking about it. Like, I can't believe you filmed this. I can't believe you didn't stop them. She was more mad at her sister for like egging on the situation than she is that anyone filmed it. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. And I don't know if it's like because we've come into that social media age where it's just expected now. But I mean, when I grew up, it was, thank God, there was no like flip phones that were like, well, there was flip phones, but there was no phones you could like record, stuff like that on it. And it's just so interesting that it just is what it is now. Instead of, I even think like around, because this is only 3 years old, right? Around the time this came out, there was a few American movies, like I think about Unfriended and stuff like that talk about, social media damage. And I mean, we've spoken about it too, but, talked about how the social media is the cause, them filming it is the cause for someone being upset, where in this one, it just wasn't touched on. I just thought it was interesting. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just it. It wasn't really the forefront of the movie. Like the whole point of the movie wasn't like her getting like outed to everybody that she is a cannibal or anything. But it's just kind of like how, like you said, like it's just how it is. And I guess it kind of, I mean, there is a point to like, she's not really going to go after everybody that was filming. Like, how are you going to, like, it's the internet. There's like that, idea that if it's on the internet, it's there already anyway, and you're going to have a hell of a time taking it down anyway. But I thought that kind of tied into like the, I guess like slut shaming a little bit in the movie, like how cannibalism is kind of equated to her sexuality in it, or her like coming into her sexuality.
Very much true. I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, and like the video, like the way that when he shows her the video, Adrian shows her the video, the way it leads into it, like it's almost like something you've seen before already when you see a video of like a girl fucked up being like slutty or whatever. And she kind of starts off that way too. Like she tries to kiss that guy, and then his girlfriend steps in, and then she tries to kiss the girlfriend or whatever because she's so far gone.
Yeah.
And so like you almost recognize the video before it cuts to her trying to bite a human arm. So everything else seems familiar. Like you've kind of seen this before. A girl fucked up, and then the next day everyone's kind of giving her dirty looks, like they're like slut shaming her essentially. And then you find out it's because they saw her do like some fucked up shit trying to eat a dead guy's arm.
Nothing to do with being slutty at all, just like eating a dead body, Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting, and it makes me think about, like, there is a scene of her at the start of that party, and she's, like, sitting on that bench, and she's, like, got this wild look in her face, but she's, like, licking her lips. And I guess that's the thing, like, licking people's lips and all that kind of stuff can be seen as, like, being sexual, but she's actually, like, just wants to eat people, which is quite funny. But, I mean, throughout the whole thing, there's a lot of body shaming, and it is very interesting, and her coming into her own as well. There's that moment where she's, like, singing in front of the mirror, and she's, like, kissing herself and stuff, it is funny how it's, like, linked, like, her sexuality with her, like, eating, human flesh. It's a very strange connection there. But I did find when we were talking about the nurse, well, I guess when the sisters first interact in the school, her sister's older and, is at the same school as her, and they talk a lot about, oh my God, thank you so much for your blood sacrifice, West Coast. I wish I could say that. How do I pronounce that?
I missed it. I don't even see it. Oh. Well, thank you for oh, there it is. Chicano?
Chicano. Thank
West
you.
Coast Chicano?
Thank you for blood sacrifice.
Sorry, it took me, I was really delayed.
I was like, come on, Vicky. Also, hi, Felicia. Sorry. Yeah, so at the start, she lets her borrow her clothes. The older sister lets the main character borrow her clothes, and she's talking about her body and how her body doesn't fit anything, and yeah, it's a little bit awkward. And then when she starts eating meat, she's like they say, like, you're filling out the dress now and all this. The nurse does talk to her about if she's fitting in, how she's going through the hazing process, and then she talks about another girl that she, I don't know, worked with, looked after, when, like, I guess a couple of years before. And it's very interesting. And I want to say this, if anyone is in the chat who is French, like, I really want to hear your perspective on this, because a lot of French films, and I mean, French people I know, the attitude towards, and it's just like a lot of different cultures have different attitude towards talking about people's weight. And that's what this conversation is about. I know, like, in Asia, it's very different conversation, and it's not so, like, rude to, I mean, it's still rude, but it's not, like, such a big thing to say openly someone's gaining weight or anything like that. But in this film, they talk about another girl who didn't fit in because she wasn't the same size as everyone else. And it made me think throughout the film, it's going to sound really weird, especially at the start, there's a shot where they're, like, crawling across the ground when they're first getting hazed, and I realized how, like, everyone looks very similar body shape wise in this film, and there was no, like, real diversity, and it made me really think about that. And like, there is, like, I don't want to say stigma, but there's a stereotype about, like, the French attitude towards people who aren't the same size. And I felt like that this conversation very much touched on that, and it really added towards, like, the fat phobia kind of, it added towards everyone wanting to be the exact same way in the school. Everyone has to be, like, normal, can't be weird, and also has to look the same certain way. And, I mean, I get the relation she was trying to make, like, people stand out because of other things, but I just thought it was really interesting that they just kind of, like, put it in there. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was kind of like, I feel like it's another one of those things that almost is just kind of, like, thrown in there, but it's not really the, like, the overriding, like, theme of the movie, where she just starts talking about this, and you almost have a moment where you're kind of like, how, like, what, how, why are we talking about this? But you're right, and I think you wrote in your notes too about one of the hazing rituals is to dress in, like, club wear and stuff like that, and there it's like it's already kind of, like, understood, I feel like, among the students that they all are, like, fit or they're skinnier and stuff like that. So, you know, like, doing something like that isn't that insane, but if you were somebody that had, like, a body type like me, or say something like that, that would be way different if it was like, oh, you got to dress in, like, your sluttiest stuff or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's not even really addressed because there is no one, like, everyone looks the same. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And that's the thing. She was getting criticized at the start for being too thin. And then, you know what I mean? It's just like, and then they talk about someone who's criticizing it the other way. And it was just very, yeah. And as you're saying, there are lots of different themes and ideas in this film, and a lot of them aren't addressed. And I think it's got to do with, like, it being a foreign film as well, and the different ways, different cultures, like, just kind of glide over certain aspects. But I think, yeah, adding it all up together is, like, super interesting for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else have you got?
I think...
Oh, do you want to talk about... Oh, no, wait, I'm looking at...
Oh, I mean, unless you have something else, mine kind of relates it to... I just put in that random bit because it related to eat.
Which bit? Oh, that bit?
Yeah.
I was like, are you highlighting it? Yeah, you can go.
Yeah. I was like, unless you have something else, because mine kind of...
Oh, well, let's... Wait, first, the last thing I do want to say... Wait, we'll say this one thing before... I haven't even spoken. Once again, we haven't spoken about the cannibalism in the film.
Oh, yeah?
I knew we were going to do this. I know people who don't want to watch this film because they are really scared. We did this last time, too. Because they were really scared about, like, the grotesque kind of scenes in this film. A lot of people, I think vomit bags were given out at some screenings when it first came out. It was really hyped up. It was really, really hyped up film. I remember going to see it here at the outdoor cinema, and a lot of people were like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this. Like, people who I know who don't even like horror movies were like, this is going to be so intense, and they kind of walked away being like, oh, it wasn't, because it's got such a good, like, storyline, and everything is, like, appropriate to, like, what's happening, if that makes sense. It's not just going to, you know, trying to get, you know, a scare, or in this case, like, gross you out. There's, like, a purpose for it. So it's all, like, works well in context. But I will say that there's a lot of, like, really interesting scenes in this movie that have nothing to do with cannibalism that are probably even grosser. There's a scene where, like, the sister is, like, reaching her whole arm into a cow's butt, and, like, you see her pull it out. I mean, this is all medical stuff. You see her pull it out, and, like, the shit just go, like, off her arm, and it's, like, it's a lot. There's also, like, some pretty, I mean, I'll get slowly into it. There's also a scene where they just start peeing, two girls peeing up on this roof, like they have, like, a dick, like they're trying to like poke out their bodies so that it makes like a stream, and then they start peeing on themselves. Just like what I would say is really funny because it's kind of like raw, as I would say, just like not the film, but they're just like raw, gritty kind of scenes in themselves to show them as it's kind of endearing. They're just people, and they're doing people things, doing weird ass things.
Doing a weird ass thing.
Yeah, but there are some other scenes that I found even more like disgusting than well, I didn't really find the cannibalism scenes that disgusting. I mean, the leg in the bed is so creepy. That moment when you see the leg, I say like the special effects are done really well, like the makeup. But there is a scene where they're like cutting open dogs for like a class, and that was pretty, because that must have been real. Like, there's no way that was fake. Obviously, like a dead dog that might have died in an accident or what have you, and them cutting them open because they're in a they're studying to be vets. So I mean, if you
kind of have to do it,
yeah, it's a lot if you're into animals. Like it is a pretty intense movie, but again, it's like they're studying to be vets, so they're starting to help out animals. But yeah, very intense stuff. Cannibalism. Do we want to say anything about that?
Really quick, Dino, thanks for your blood sacrifice.
Thank you so much for your blood sacrifice, Dino.
Said, I am offended. Here's my soul. Too funny. But yeah, the cannibalism. That's what the movie's about. I remember hearing that what you were saying about the movie before it came out, like giving out the barf bags and stuff, and I can kind of see it a little bit. Like, I don't know what it's called, but that thing where like you hear chewing noises and it like pisses you off, like it grosses you out. That's what, like, I hate that about this movie, because I think that's what makes it extra gross, is every time she like eats something or chews something, it's that very like almost ASMR-y sounding, like you can hear like the slurping and the munching, and it kind of makes you want to like punch the screen and also like throw up a little bit. Ugh. I think that just makes it worse. Like, I could handle like watching somebody eat somebody else on a movie, but as soon as like but you have to have the sound in there because that just makes it more grotesque.
Yeah.
I feel like, does that sound weird? Like, I wouldn't find it as grotesque if the noise wasn't as like prominent, like the cheese noises.
No, completely. That makes a lot of sense. I think that the reason we don't touch on these kind of aspects of the film is because obviously it's not offensive because it doesn't really happen. I mean, it happens, but it doesn't happen that often, and obviously that's the most fictitious part of the whole film, and it's easier for us to draw what could be deemed offensive from things that actually happen in society and the way they portray things than like someone just like eating another person. It's really fucked up, especially because they have like this whole way they do it where they like make someone crash their car and go and eat their body. It's pretty bad, but it's also very obvious to the viewer that it's not real. Yeah, I just think it's actually really like problematic of us to be like, we're like, oh yeah, like we just every time we scoot over like the cannibalism, we're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, next. I think it's really funny.
People eating people, but remember this part about the animals, guys.
Yeah. Well, it was the same thing with Cannibal Holocaust. I'm pretty sure we never spoke about cannibalism in that whole film, which is so funny. But they had it coming.
We did. I think we called them a village of cannibals, and that's about as much as we talked about cannibalism.
To be fair, the people they killed worked out well. Anyway, so sorry. Do you want to go on and say that last bit that you had highlighted?
Oh yeah. So I was trying to find, we always manage to find something, like how the movies are like connected more than we initially thought, whether like we're really reaching or not. And this one is definitely reaching. This is like a minuscule part of this movie, but I found it interesting when I was, just further ruining my Google search history by looking up like auto cannibalism and things like that. But I did find there's a psychological disorder. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's PICA, pica.
I would say pica, but
don't
I pronounce everything wrong.
Don't know. But it's a psychological disorder, and it's characterized by having an appetite for substances that are largely non-nutritive. So stuff like some of the examples they gave are like glass, drywall, like things people eat that you shouldn't eat.
That's that show,
And it can.
right? That my strange addiction.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes that's it. It's not always eating stuff, but yes, like that.
Sorry.
Uh, but it can also include like eating your fingernails and eating your hair, which some people, I guess, like don't consider a form of self-cannibalism, but I don't know, I guess you can make that distinction if you really want to make that distinction. But I thought that was interesting because weirdly in a random scene, Justine is chewing her hair when she's getting like chewed out by her
Yeah.
professor. And then it immediately cuts to her throwing up hair after doing that, which I just thought that was interesting.
Wow.
So she could do a little bit of auto cannibalism in the movie. Oh, and when she's having sex too, she has to bite herself. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I saw it more of that because she was, but also I know it's not herself, but she ate her sister, which was like really freaking weird. Out of eating everybody, eating her sister was like the weirdest thing when she ate her sister's finger. I saw a couple of people.
Cannibalism, whatever. Eating your sister, no.
No. I saw a couple of people say that they didn't like the bit where she was eating the raw chicken breast. I read somewhere that was like pure sugar. So there you go. Something to think about next time you watch that.
Still sounds gross.
Yeah. So Vicky, did you find raw offensive?
No. If I'm being honest, no. But I could see how people might find it offensive in some ways, and maybe offensive to like their stomachs, probably a little bit.
I didn't find
but no,
it offensive
I didn't.
at all. Like I really like this film. I think it's great, and I think it's really interesting all the different aspects that are in it. It really does do well with like a second and third viewing, I think.
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
So, should we move on to Eat, which I'm so excited to hear your opinion on this because this is the first time you watched this one.
Yes, it is. Okay, so really quick for anyone who doesn't know, please don't eat Tide Pod kids. Yes, don't eat that either. This is written and directed by Jimmy Weber, and it follows Novella McClure, a struggling actress in her 30s trying to make it big in Hollywood. On top of that, Novella has developed a disturbing habit of eating her own flesh. She desperately tries to hide this from her best friend Candace, landlord Isha, and new boyfriend Simon. Novella's fatal habit causes her to deteriorate, however, in the depressing world of failed auditions and sketchy nightclubs. This is a movie.
What did you think of it? I want to know.
Strangely, I kind of enjoyed watching it, which is going to sound weird once we start like talking about all the stuff that happens in this movie. Like you feel like I kind of feel bad enjoying it, but it was really interesting to watch. Like it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, I forgot. I mean, I did a review on it when I first watched it, and I forgot how low budget it was. Which I think is really cool because it's good when a movie that's low budget sticks with you. I thought that was really good. And I really love the lead actress. I think she does such a good job in the film, like really carries you through it. And somehow she's like all of a sudden eating her arm and you're like, yeah, I mean, if that's what
you're
you
just
need.
like, okay, yeah.
You like really go down the rabbit hole with her, which I think it's funny. This is, again, if you didn't catch the start, I guess like a huge trigger warning on this one because self-harm and sexual harassment, abuse in this. So, yes, just so you know, because it gets a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Where do we even start with this, to be honest?
I don't know.
I guess we want to start with, like, I'm like, where do I start?
I'm like, do we start with the cannibalism or do we talk about the other things
first? Maybe we should start with that. Okay, so, I mean, this is a little bit easier, cannibalism, to talk about because it kind of comes from, well, I think the interesting subject around it is where does it come from? And I think that her self-cannibalism, auto-cannibalism is really like a form of self-harm. And it is expressed by other people that it could be that throughout the film, and you kind of she just kind of starts doing it to herself, and it's not like you go through her thought process, but as things get worse, she starts, it gets worse. But one of the scenes in here that's actually like disgusting is when she has like a hangnail, and she and it all the way down her arm, and it's like, I can't even express to you how well they did it, that it looks like it's a dream, like it's just so intense. It is disgusting, but that's kind of like, it's kind of playing off like your fears of that, because a lot of people have that where like they pull something and then it's like gets longer. This is obviously to the extreme, but I feel like that's really what helps you go down the rabbit hole and just feel like, oh, everything's going wrong for her in her real life. Oh, and then of course this would happen, but you don't really realize. Well, I mean you do, but it takes a second for you to catch up and realize that she is actually self-harming. And I like to think of this. The way that she does it is it's a coping mechanism for obviously everything that's going bad in her life. She just seems to just, it just gets worse and worse and worse until she can't like hardly walk and things like that. And she's eaten so much of her foot and all that kind of stuff. But also I feel like because she's chasing fame in Hollywood, I think of it as the fame, and she's so hungry for fame that she's like starting to eat herself, which I don't know if that's like me reaching, but I like that little tidbit.
No, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, it's such a like looks oriented industry. Like we talked about this before when we did like Starry Eyes and the Neon Demon and stuff like that, but it's so much of, making it in Hollywood, like as an actress or whatever, is all about your looks. So it is an interesting aspect that she chooses to eat her own flesh, which should, it is literally eating away at her body and making her less, like beautiful, because she is destroying her body. So no, I don't think it's.
I guess exactly what you're saying. They're showing her looks, but also there's like moments where at the start she's like during the title sequence, she's like painting her nails and stuff, and then her hands end up being like really fucked up from like her eating it. So it's like, I guess it does like really like she's putting value into like doing her nails and like maintaining herself, so when she goes to auditions, like she gets the part because she's got red nails, obviously. So because that's how you get the part. So I think it does make a direct correlation between those two things. So I just think it's so fascinating the way it does in this film. It really, when she starts getting really bad and she goes to hospital and everyone's like, someone comes in and talks to her and says, you need to go see someone, and she's like, no, like it's just like I slipped on with the peaches, and everyone's like, you beat yourself, like we can see the bite marks, and you're kind of with her. You're like, maybe things are just going wrong for her. Like it's a very interesting the way they portray it. They don't really show it from her actual, they never really let out her subconscious, which is obviously she's pushing down, where in a lot of films they have a moment where someone snaps and then they let everything out. In this one, it's just continuously her pushing it down, which is really interesting to see a character and follow a main character who's not giving you that that side of their brain, and you're just seeing, everything else come together. Yeah.
I was wondering if you found it different viewing, because I mean, you and I made the same kind of connection that her biting herself is equivalent to like self-harm. So if it like plays differently, because I don't know if it's like wrong to say like it's almost comical some of the times, like her eating herself, because the idea is like so ridiculous and it's like to the extreme, like it plays so much differently. I was thinking like, because I was imagining it like, what if it was just like, I guess like a normal movie, I don't know, and she was like cutting herself or doing something like that instead of eating her flesh, like if that would change that movie, if that was the only difference, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I mean, that would be really cool to see this film like redone in a different kind of form of self-harm. And I get what you mean. It's like comical, but I feel like the comical aspect comes from like, I can imagine you would probably have a similar reaction to me when you watch these kind of things, because I've seen your reactions to things when you're like watching something and it's so gross, you're like, this is so bad, and you're kind of laughing to kind of cope yourself. So I don't know
Yeah,
how much
exactly.
comical it is or how like we just kind of have to laugh along because we're used to this kind of gore. But yeah, you're right. It's not
True.
taken as seriously because it is something that's so out there and so like fascinating to watch. Where and
Mhm.
you know like everyone's dealt with at least know someone or you know themselves or a family member who has had self harm issues. So seeing something that is so related to reality would be quite sad and yeah, it is very interesting because it's almost easier to watch because it isn't as realistic.
That's what I was thinking. Like it would be so much harder to watch it, like too real if she was
Mm.
doing like a, I don't want to say like normal, but like a realistic form of self harm, not eating yourself. Like, don't get offended, people.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not how I meant to say it. You know what
No,
I
no,
mean?
no.
But like, it
You're
would
fine.
seem like too real if it
Mm.
was something like that rather than her eating herself, where it's like so ridiculous
Mm.
and so crazy that it's more palatable
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like to then go explore that idea because it's so ridiculous. Hopefully that all made sense.
No, no, that definitely makes sense, and it's interesting because it's like I have friends with how do you say it, trichotillomania, you know, or pull out their hair and stuff like that, and you know that's not always seen, or even picking skin isn't always seen as self harm where it is, and I guess it's just not taking things as seriously, or just not things not being acknowledged the same way as like you know how the movies glamorize you know taking a knife and you know being in the bath and all that kind of stuff. But I do think it
Right.
would be a very different movie where this is seen as a horror movie because of the gore aspect, I feel like, and because of the auto cannibalism, self cannibalism. Where you're right, if it was self harm in any other aspect, I don't think that this would be. Would this be a horror movie? Like, that's like a different question in itself.
Ooh, yeah.
Would it be like, I mean, there's still some things that happen, like, you know, they shoot off some guys' dicks. um, just throwing that out there. That happens too in the film. But yeah, I don't know. And that, I mean, everyone's always towing the line. I know you are too, between like thriller and horror and what that
Yeah.
really means. And it's kind of all up into interpretation. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I guess what's the next aspect that you want to jump into? Because there's a lot. I mean, this kind of ties into the mental health. If you want to talk about that a little bit, because I did say how she goes to the psychiatrist eventually. Um,
Yeah.
is he a psychiatrist or psychologist? Anyway, um, goes to seek help. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just interesting because it does play into mental health, and I think we're talking so much about the after effects, but we're not really talking about mental health itself. And it's you know what the saddest thing in the whole film is the fact that she's like ready to give up doing acting, and she's like I'm done, and her
Yeah.
friend won't let her. She's like, no, you've done this for so long, and she can obviously see that she's like literally tearing herself apart, and
Mhm.
it's I guess it's more about the support around you, and when you get to a stage where you're like, oh, I could do this to make my mental health better, having people who aren't you know pushing you down around you, I guess was like a very bad moment for her. But I did want to just touch on like there obviously this has a lot to do with mental health in this film, as you know anyone who
Yeah.
has depression or like you know self harm issues, it's all connected obviously. But I guess we just didn't say the words
Yeah.
mental health. So yeah,
Right.
I love how
And I
everyone
mean,
in the
they kind
chat's
of
been.
tie the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was
What?
just saying everyone in the chat's talking about feeding criminals to the poor and okay, yep.
Ew.
The chat's something else.
Okay.
Sorry, as you go on.
Okay. No, you're okay. You're okay. I was gonna say the mental health aspect kind of ties into, because after I watched the movie, I was like looking up, especially the very ending, which I guess we gave a spoiler warning. And just the idea of like eating your own flesh in general, because I thought that was a really interesting distinction. Because I feel like when we think about cannibal movies, your inclination is people eating other people. Like you never
Mm-hmm.
really think about self cannibalism at all,
Mm-hmm.
because that just seems even more strange than cannibalism, if that's possible. Um, so I looked up if that had any kind of like meaning or anything to see if it would like tie into the movie. And it does have like a couple of different meanings. One of like a really easy one is like laziness or something. But I found this really interesting article. It's, I guess, like Hebrew word study somebody did. I guess there's a line in the Bible. It's Ecclesiastes, and it says, "The fool folded his hands together and eats his own flesh." And the author like interpreted this as somebody who's going through a difficult time and essentially gives up and dwells in their own misery. So the giving up would be like folding your hands, like you're not gonna do anything to change your situation anymore, and you're just going to dwell in your own misery, eating your own flesh, which kind of ties into what novella is doing a little bit, leading into the very end, which I thought was interesting, where she cuts out and eats her own heart, and that's how she dies essentially at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I looked that up too. And that can sometimes, like eating your own heart can sometimes be seen as a metaphor for suffering in silence from anguish or grief, which Emma, you touched on earlier, where she doesn't really give anybody anything by way of like what she's going through. She kind of just like squashes it all down. So I thought that was really interesting choice to have her eat her own heart at the end to end herself.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of
that is a great explanation. I love that. And Zachary's, I just laugh because Zachary's comment says, "Yes, self-cannibalism is lazy. Go out and work for your food."
Yeah, I thought that was such a strange, like, I just like, as if you Google it, it's like eating your own flesh equals laziness. I'm like, okay.
I mean, I don't think so. But yeah, I love that explanation. I think that is, like, really, sums up the film really well. I like that we talked about the cannibalism so heavily in this one.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was so connected to somewhere, where in the other one it wasn't. Yeah. But yes, no, I thought that was really interesting. Because of her novella's like mental health, we just know like what's going on with her now, like in the film, like what's going on in real time, and with all the auditions and the other people, and like just her, her spiraling. But she does touch on some sexual abuse from a uncle. When she meets a guy in the club, she like talks about how she doesn't have any family up here, and like her parents died, I believe. And was her parents died, or yeah?
Yeah, both her parents died, and then she moves in with her aunt and uncle, and then the uncle is abusive.
Yeah, she says, "I had one of those uncles," or something like that. So, I mean, obviously that ties into the whole thing. But there's also, and I think that hints at either being, like, abusive or sexually abusive, especially when it's so sad, but when it's, like, an uncle, unfortunately, like, that's, like, the kind of connotation that has. And then it also, there's, like, a very extreme scene that, like, freaked them. I mean, it's just really awful, where they are in the club, and they go to this club all the time to get free drinks from guys that are like awful, and no wonder she's like in such a hard spot. Like, she's just doing this every night because she's so depressed about her life, and then she goes to auditions every day, and then it's just like spiraling. But one night they're like having drinks with her and her best friend are having drinks with these two guys, and these guys are just saying weird things, and then they go and get a drink. The girls drink the drink, and then they leave, and then, they've been spiked. And they start falling down the car park, and the guys come over, and they, I don't know, they just tell them exactly what they're about to do to them, and it's just a really confronting situation to see on film, especially because, I mean, if you've watched a lot of films like I have, and, like, I'm sure, like, Vicky does, although I don't think Vicky goes for all of the really, really disturbing dark ones like I do.
Yeah, not all the time.
Yeah. There's hardly ever do the people get out of the situation okay, especially in horror movies. Like, there's a lot of like rape revenge films and stuff. Like, it usually you have to sit through that scene, and then there's going to be like, fucking cold revenge served cold like later, and it's just it's never worth it though, is it?
Right.
Anyway, so you're expecting the scene. He starts unbuckling, and then the friend Candace, is it Candace? Yeah, she grabs her gun and shoots the guy in his genital region, which is just totally unexpected and weird. But like that whole harassment thing is very interesting. I don't know how it's meant to like tie into the film, just like awful things happening to them and putting themselves in awful situations. But it was pretty traumatic to watch. I have to say, like, I don't know how you felt about it, but it was like very realistic and like very intense. Like, the way they came towards them was just like, the language they used was just over the top.
It was, I mean, maybe that's I don't know. Maybe it's because it was like a lower budget and they felt like they could like go there with it. But yeah, it was, I mean, it like, I'm kind of glad it didn't end up being like a actual rape scene, because it started off like so vicious, where I was kind of like, I've sadly seen quite a lot of rape revenge movies, which I'm sure, I know you have as well. Like, I was like, I don't know if I want to like watch this. Like, everything else in her life is so awful. Like, I can't, like, I don't even know if I can take watching this happen to her. But then once again, like, weirdly, like, something insane happens, like when Candace shoots the guy's dicks off, that almost makes it comical again, where it's like somewhere where you like shouldn't laugh, but then it's like something so vicious goes to something so shocking, and where you can't help but kind of laugh a little bit,
because you're like, where did that come from? And even the next day, like, it's not addressed at all until like she has like meets up with this guy and is talking about, and she's like, oh yeah, last night like my friend shot someone's dick off, and they're like, ha, and it's like where were the police? Like, what happened afterwards? Like, what happened to the body? Like, are they alive? Like there's no talk about it.
They never say that in the movie. What the fuck happened to those guys?
Weird. And they said they shot like both of their dicks off. You only see one at the time, but I'm like, did she line them up afterwards? Like, what? Did everyone just get in their car and go home and didn't contact the police? Like, I'm so... And, like, I mean, if there's gunshots down in a car park, did someone else hear it? Call the cops, see on, like, CCTV. Like, there was just so much to it that didn't make any sense. Yes, and she didn't wash the blood off before she went to bed. The whole
that was bugging me so bad in the movie. Out of the whole movie, I'm like, you don't wash the dick blood off of your face after you do it.
Someone needs to make a channel calling Wash the Dick Blood. No, please don't, because that's not going to work out well for anybody.
Like, why would you not? The first thing I would do.
You're right. S. Lick, I guess you would say, says that's just lazy. And you're right. Maybe she's just lazy, and that's why she eats her own body.
Just unsanitary.
Yeah, it's so funny. Beer. You can live without a dick, right, Ben? Rude, guys. Very rude. Yeah, it was just the whole movie. I really recommend going to watch it. It is it's all available on YouTube, but it is like a independent film, and it always stuck with me because I've never seen anything done quite the same kind of way. I guess the other thing I want to touch on, which, I mean, everything in this film all contributes to her mental health, and it's more straightforward, I guess, than Raw, is again, slut-shaming, or not even slut-shaming, just girls being awful to each other. I hate using, like, the term slut anyway, but girls being awful to each other. Oh, there you go, it's on Tubi. And, I mean, in all the auditions, they just, like, talk to each other, like, oh, you know, casting couch kind of, you know, inferring that the other person has slept with like a director or like given him a blowjob or whatever so that they could get the part. And they're just awful to each other the whole time. And yeah, I just it was awful to watch. Like, yeah, it's really sad. I mean, it was just toxic behavior, and I guess it's showing like toxic Hollywood once again.
Yeah. It doesn't get any easier to watch. You even did a whole like does this offend you episode on like that Hollywood system, and it doesn't get any easier to watch even that. It's still,
I think that's more because
you just know how real it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Those are the sad bits because you know how realistic it is, and that these girls are awful to each other because it's like you know, dog eat dog kind of situation.
Yep.
But I guess that's all I had. Did you have anything?
No, we got all of mine too.
Yeah, that one was a little bit more straightforward, but I think has like a very individual message. I guess they both do, but a very distinctive message about self-harm. It's very different to the first one, where I think that Raw was more about you think that someone's doing something for a certain purpose, and it like makes it seem like their beliefs and everything that they know it until you know it cracks. And then they realized they were actually meant to be a different person, and what they were actually doing to control that you know, it was all for a different reason. Where in this film, it's more of a straight kind of, you know, like
right.
It's like straight and steady. Obviously, her mental health is the cause of everything. Hey, Raiders! Hey, Megan.
I don't know when I endorsed that, Felix, but okay.
King? King.
I don't know if they take this anywhere else, but in my little patron Skype chat, Felix and Ben have a competition on who's king.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess good on you guys. You don't take it anywhere else.
No. They know I would not put up with that shit.
Yeah.
I'm scared of everyone. Yeah, imagine. Try it, guys. Try it. I was like, King, that's so random.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Anyway, so Vicky, did this film offend you?
I always feel like so bad for saying no all the time, but I mean, we've established just nothing really offends us.
Yeah. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, but this is one of those that I put up there. Like, I would fully understand if somebody, I think, got offended over this. I don't know. I just feel like the self-harm bit a little bit makes it a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah, and
than maybe some other ones.
More of like a trigger than being offended.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, like, trigger is such like a memed thing, and I know that we say it all the time, like, oh my god, you were triggered about this, blah, blah, blah. But triggers are very much worthy, and maybe it's worth, you know, having a different name on it. Like, if you've been through something that can cause, you know, trauma, it is worth saying, and it doesn't hurt anyone to say out loud, like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to talk about this subject, because it might, you know, send you on a spiral. And I appreciate when people do that for things that I can spiral with. And I hate when people like use it as, you know, it's people being too sensitive, because people from all walks of life have certain, you know, things in their past that they might not want to sit down and, you know, if they're watching a TV show and an episode comes up that deals with that, they might not want to think about it at that time. It's just like there's a place and time for it, you know what I mean? If you're clicking on a video that obviously is about cannibalism, you know, you kind of know we're going to go in deep. And that's why I set a trigger warning at the start, because talking about cannibalism doesn't, like, you wouldn't really think about self-harm in that. And if something had just happened to you, or, you know, someone you know, and you, like, clicked on this video, that's when it's appropriate to say it, because it's kind of obvious. But, you know, if I was doing a video on, like, you know, my history of self-harm or something like that, you know before you click on it. So that's why I think it is valid. And it's nice to be kind to each other as well. It's not like we're overdoing it by, like, pandering. We're just letting people know what this episode's going to entail. So, I don't know. I think it's just, like, important. I'm sure everyone in the chat kind of agrees, but I just think it's important just to be, like, nice and just, like, sensitive in that aspect. You don't have to, like, pander your whole conversation. Obviously, we go completely off topic and, like, you know, we don't censor ourselves, but I think it's good to disclose at the start. This stream is not for kids, Zachary. I'll make sure I mark that.
Oh my god, no.
That's funny. Understanding would be the word. Yes, that is the word, Seth. Thank you guys so much for coming. Or should we check out the poll?
Yeah, I was gonna say check the poll.
If you can pull it up, because I think that my computer's gonna explode if I try and open another.
Okay, so with 57 votes, it looks like 54% of you thought that Raw was the more offensive movie, to a 46% for Eat.
Did we get any comments about why?
We do actually a little bit. Zachary Haith, I think he's in the chat still, said, on the way they're careless on the topics of suicide and rape, definitely Eat. So he had voted for Eat, which I can agree. That would, you know, make it a little bit more sensitive. The movie Void, Ivan said, I like the way cannibalism is portrayed in Raw. It appears very human and relatable and makes it offensive for the easily offended. Well,
I don't think so. But nice reach. We like a good reach, yes.
Yeah. We can relate on that instance. Horror Miser Monty G agreed with Ivan. He wrote under Ivan, Raw is more focused on the relationship between the two sisters who just happen to be cannibals. So that's an interesting take. The last scene is still a bit shocking, which, yeah, totally. And then Brooke, who I think is still in the chat also, Says she hasn't seen either, but from what she heard about both, she would choose that one.
Cool.
Because every time I watch Cannibalism, I want to throw up. Yeah, I can agree with that a little bit. Yeah.
It is pretty gross. But
not pleasant to watch, really.
Yeah, super interesting. Which is funny. Hey, when you say Ivan, is it Ivan? You say Ivan? Haha. I always love this. Like the difference between the American and we say Ivan. Ivan. You say Ivan.
Okay.
We say Ivan. It's like this whole Aaron thing. Aaron. It's a foolproof way of like Americans think that they say everything right, but Aaron is like my foolproof. Anytime someone says, "Oh, well, you're not saying this right," I'm like, "But do you say Aaron instead of saying Aaron?" And they're like, Aaron. Wait, no, they say Aaron. They're like, no, it's the same word, but it's not. Anyway, that's just my.
Well, we're both wrong because it's Aaron. Everyone in the chat is saying it is right. It's Aaron.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's funny. If anyone has any problems, yeah. Ivan. Interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but interesting. Anyway.
That was totally not related to
Cannibalism. No, it was completely related. Ivan, like the vehicle. Ivan.
That's how I was saying.
Yeah, I know you were.
Ivan.
I mean, I guess it depends on the person. I knew someone who was called Ivan. Now I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Ivan. Okay, anyway. I was just curious, guys. I'm sorry. Now the chat goes off finally about what we're talking about. Okay, Thank you guys so much for coming today. And, stop by. If you felt this was at all, I was going to say helpful. I don't think it was helpful, but if you felt it was interesting, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us out. And be sure to keep on our Instagram and Twitters and all that kind of stuff for updates on the new episode coming up. We will be having a Patreon after video chat thingy. So stay tuned for that. Patreons. I haven't. I'm like, I don't want to go there. What people are saying in the chat. But make sure to follow Vicky. Her link is down here to Nightmare Maven's channel. Yay, fave. So definitely go check that out and give it a sub. And if you want to check out, I just put a new video up today, so go check that out about my paranormal experience. People are telling me go see a doctor. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh, okay, thanks. People are telling me to go see the doctor, so if you could please go and write a nice comment that isn't I can't believe the comments I got. I should have known better. I should disable the comments. Anyway, I love you guys very much, and go check out Vicky's Vicky's video on the lighthouse, the reaction. Spoiler free, I will say. I don't know if you put that on there, but it's definitely spoiler free.
I didn't. I should.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, cool. Okay. I will talk to you guys soon, and stay tuned for updates. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.